So, Ian, it's noon. So and it looks like a couple other folks are joining on too.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, firstly, we were just talking about working remotely, and if the audio is good, so often in technology today, I think we start talking about all the new things that are going on. We've got the cloud, and we've got, artificial intelligence and all of these shiny new things. But this pivot to remote work really brought up some of the fundamental things. When we're getting onto a Zoom meeting and somebody doesn't have audio or they don't have a camera, and you realize that they are working off of really old hardware, and that's impacting their experience. And although we sort of take long-term partnerships like Dell, is just sort of almost like a utility. You just expect it to be there. You expect you're going to be able to get laptops for your employees. Dell's business is changed dramatically over the past 10 years, going from a publicly traded company to private ownership. I think there's been a lot of refocusing on what Dell does, and I see a lot of great products coming out, and a lot of things that have drastically changed how we work, like having the integrated cellular cards, right into the laptops. I work on the go a lot in sales, and now we're all working on the go a lot from home. And when you don't have access to internet because of a flakiness, and you have an alternative like a cellular card built right in, it can really change things. So I'm excited to hear about what you and Dell are bringing to the table, and it's a critical part of our business. And we do work with other companies, but we just see that Dell offers such good support. So I'll stop talking and start listening and learning.
Okay, well, like I said, this is just going to be a real surface level, high up overview. There is a lot of material to go through, but a lot of the minutia I look up in the technical guidebook, and whenever there's a big thing like that, I will do my due diligence and research it. So, but we're going to take a look at the client line. There's a lot going on in client right now, but I feel like the main push, the thing that Dell is just saying over and over and over again, is an end-to-end solution. You talked about the work from home, the situation, the digital transformation that businesses are going through, where they were working in one situation and now people are working from home, and so the technical and the hardware needs are all changed, but they're all also the same. So we're going to look at a couple things, and we can talk about whatever comes up. So we want to look at the latitude line. Now, the latitude 3410 and the 3310 2-in-1. What do you think that would go to? Who would be interested in that, you think? I'm going to try to make this a little bit interactive. I hope you don't mind. Okay, so
somebody that's on the road, or it says it's the smallest. So something for convenience.
Yeah, if you are getting in front of people on a regular basis, if you are on the road, if you're meeting people in a coffee shop and having to show a diagram or do a meeting like this in person, if you're doing that sort of thing and you don't want something heavy to carry around, then you're going to look for a 14-inch or a 13-inch laptop. The 3310 2-in-1 convertible is great because you can be sitting there typing, and then during your meeting you can flip it up and you can just show people what's going on your screen. And so that's a real benefit there. It's also, if you look at how thin it is, Um, it's awesome that a machine that is, you know, a work machine is designed to be used for 40, you know, 40 hours a week, sometimes some people 60 hours a week, something that's designed to carry that sort of load kind of looks nice. A lot of times things like that will have a heavier look, and I think these look kind of nice. Okay, so the 5310 and 53, this line, that's just the next level up. It's going to be a tighter, more well-made machine. Going to the 5000 line. And we've got the same sort of thing with the 7000 line. As you go up those different lines, you get more options. You've got the option for SIM cards and all sorts of cool stuff there. And it even goes up another step to the 95,000 and the 94,000. So the Optiplex XE3, this is a design that you're going to look for when you've got something that's going, you need a machine that's going to stay the same over time. You don't really want to change that many things. It's designed to have a long lifespan, and when you come back in 7 years to change it, it's not going to be impossible to change this over. So, I mean, Dell has an agreement with Intel to start a new version of the machines. Like, we are pretty consistently upgrading the machines, and this one stays the same over a long lifespan. So that's the large benefit of going for the XE3 over, say just a 3070 that's going to be moving to the 3080 in a year.
So that would be that lifespan, Daniel. That would be really important if you're talking about a phased rollout. I have customers come to me and they say, we don't want to replace all of our computers all at once. We want to do 30, 40 a year, and then they also say, well, we want to have everybody on the same version of the software. So those two things are often diametrically opposed if they want to have an image or they want to have everybody using the same version of Windows. So you're saying that since this, they're really looking to be able to, you can buy into this line and you can have that phased rollout. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Also, in somewhere that they very often will have these phased rollouts is in a factory. So if you've got a factory machine that you need to stay the same for a long time, then you're looking for the XE3.
So that would be any situation really where it's integrating in with other hardware. It could be a factory where it's talking with another machine on the floor. It could be a medical office. It could even be, a point of sale type system where there's other peripherals that need to kind of talk into it. That would be that compatibility with those other peripherals. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yes, sir.
When we were back on the laptops, I've got one of the 5000 series Dells, and I don't know if I answered the correct question correctly about which series is best for what. So I mean, if you're just sort of a rank and file admin user, what would you recommend? If you were a power user, an engineer, you're doing some GIS work or some CAD work, what would you recommend? If you are that doctor and you're doing some chairside work, I mean, you've got a lot of different convertibles here. Which would you recommend?
If you are working in an office and you're what we would call a corridor warrior, where you dock often, dock for several times, for extended amounts of time, but you are also going to be picking up your computer and walking to a meeting down the hall or something like that, this 5000 model is the one that I would go for. Personally, just what I like the 54,000. 14-inch isn't too big, it's not too small. And I'm on the 5490. That's what I'm using. That's what I'm working with right now, and I have a great relationship with my computer. I feel like it's good. So that's what I would do with that. If you are on the go a lot, where I would really send you would be this 9410 2-in-1 convertible or the 9510. This is your VP, your president, CEO, someone who is going to be in meetings and be on the go often, or even like a Viper or a salesperson who is on the road. An AE would really do well with a 9410 or a 9510 2-in-1. Do you have any other use cases that you're interested in? I know that you mentioned the engineer, but I really feel like that lends itself to the precision model, and we're going to cover that shortly.
Okay, great, yeah.
So looking at the Optiplex, I'll just scroll through these quickly and then we can talk about them. First, there's the tower, the small form factor, and the micro form factor. Micro form factor is the one all the way on the right. The tower is all the way on the left, and the small form factor is in the middle in that picture. But they each have their uses, so that's something we're talking about there. A tower, you're going to have more options. There's more space, so it's more configurable. Things like, you know, DVD trays and that sort of thing become more possible with that. I would have to double check my technical guidebooks, but that's the direction that I feel like really sits. If you have a very stationary situation, and let's say, you know, that's where I would do with that. The most common office machine is going to be your small form factor because it gives you a little bit of both worlds. It's not going to be, it's not a huge tower sitting next to your desk. So it's manageable size. These micro form factors, what they'll do with those often is you'll get a larger screen and you'll mount the micro form factor on the back of it, so that if you have a graphic that needs to play all day, or a TV that needs to be playing a certain graphic or a chart, keeping up with that sort of thing, a lot of times those micro form factors will be used that way. And we've got the 3000 model, 5000, 7000 model, and right now we're in the middle of a transition from the, you know, going from the 3070 to the 3080. This is a transition time in our roadmap. So the new devices, this is, if you're talking about latitudes, this is, say you were buying the 3500, you will want to start moving towards buying the 3510, because the 3510 dropped or began in June, and most of these devices are going to be phased out, say the 3070, 5070, 7070, to, that would be the Optiplex line, and the Latitude line would be the 3500, 5500, 7500. Those lines are going to be phased out by and large by September. So that's something to know about for your business. That's the way that's working. Okay, so moving on, looking at the 7080.
Daniel, I'm gonna ask some some basic questions here just to make sure we're all on the same page. So the micro is the very smallest tower there. It's
That's
the one
right.
like a book. And then the small form factor is the next one. And from a serviceability standard, you know, the larger of the two towers, you know, the small and the standard form factor ones, those are usually a little easier to service. If you're thinking about keeping your computer, you know, those 5+ years, it's usually a little easier to get parts or get you know, have a technician come out and upgrade or replace a power supply in the larger ones. Is that kind of what you see?
Honestly, I hadn't thought of that, but that's true. So that is a huge benefit to those. When I used to work IT before I had this job, we preferred to work on the towers because there's you can usually slide off a panel and just get right in there. So
Yeah.
that's a huge benefit to the tower as well.
And are the larger form factors also a little bit cheaper, so you get a little more value for money or a little more powerful?
I would say that rings true. That rings true.
So a little better value for money as far as long-term, if you're going to, you know, stretch your dollar both in years and upfront cost. And then, you know, we're a couple of things that also come up with the processors. You know, it used to be, so you have the different Intel series like the i9, then you have the cores, and then you have the CPU speed. Could you explain a little bit about, you know, the difference between those three things when we're buying a computer?
I'll try. So we've got
okay. It can be teamwork.
We should do teamwork. You've got, most commonly, you've got your i3, your i5, your i9. Well, and your i7 and your i9. The i5, i3, I don't see very many computers going out with the i3 these days. The i5 seems to be the industry standard, and as you move into the i7 and i9, typically there's a higher compute requirement. Someone's using software that needs more processing power, that kind of thing. And I'm going to leave it to you to explain what were the other two things you wanted to know?
Yeah, the number of cores and the CPU. So it seemed like in the, you know, if you roll back the clock 20 years, you just, you know, you had your processor generation, you know, like the i5, the i9. You know, you sort of had a Celeron, you had a Pentium. Those are your two different versions, and then you had the CPU, the clock speed. You know, like it was 266 megahertz or something like that. And it seemed like, you know, they started bumping up against the clock speed limit, so they just started putting in processors kind of in parallel. Because there was a trend towards multi-processor. It used to be you'd have two physical chips on the board. You'd see, you know, two separate cooling fans, two separate chips, and then they just started putting more chips kind of on one wafer or one, you know, piece of equipment in the CPU. So it seemed like it seems a lot more complicated though to buy. If you're looking at specs, the way a lot of people look at specs. So I think then Intel just sort of started simplify things down to the i9, the i7, the i5, because it was just getting so complicated if you were looking at the specs the way people used to buy it, looking at the CPU speed and the you know, the number of cores to kind of keep track of all of it. Is that kind of what you've seen?
Well, I see. There are the different gens, the different generations of the i5, i7,
Yeah.
i9, and so typically you want to check your generation to make sure that your generation is going to work with the software that you are trying to run, because there are specifications with that. I don't usually engage in conversations about cores until we start talking about the Xeons in some precision models, and then, you know, a server. A server is, we're going to talk about how many cores we're running pretty consistently. For a few reasons. One of the main reasons is that each Microsoft license is good for 16 cores. So you want to make sure that your Microsoft licensing on a server is matching up to the number of cores you have, because you can get a 16 core license and then you can get another 16 core license, but you can also bump up those licenses by 2 cores at a time. So if you're running 24 cores, then you wouldn't want to have 2 16 core licenses. You would do 1 16 core license and then 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. You know, you would add, say, a couple of those licenses on there. So that's where a lot of my conversation around cores goes, is with the Microsoft licensing, to make sure that we have that correct. If you're buying Microsoft OEM, meaning on the box, rather than having a volume licensing agreement. But usually when we're talking about the Optiplex or the Latitude line, we're just making sure that we've got the latest gen, or if you want to save a little bit of money, the gen before that, and the i5, i7, or i9, depending on the amount of compute you need, or processing power, I should probably say. Was that kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel like I said a lot, and went maybe a different direction than you were expecting me to. So I wasn't quoting out computers, you know, 2 years ago. So some of that nomenclature was lost on me, and I just have to own that. But so moving on to the all-in-one. So the all-in-one is, there are really good reasons for it, and there are reasons why you wouldn't want to do it. So the reasons why you would want to do it, some people just really, really like having everything in one spot. And if you're looking for a super clean look for your business, oh no, we got some echo. It went away. If you're looking for a super clean look for your business, if you've got several machines set up for public use, or if you have a secretary that's going to be out in public, or if your office is out in public and you are, maybe you're a vendor, or you're setting up a cart somewhere and you need that machine, then that's a super clean look. You've got no wires anywhere on this thing, and that's a huge selling point for these. The reasons why some people would go for the tower small form factor or the micro form factor is just the ability to crack the thing open and work on it, you know, and you want to make sure that, because if the screen breaks, then sometimes people will, it can be difficult to replace the screen. So I spend a lot of time explaining to people, one of my big things while I'm talking to people about technology is that I want to make sure that we have the right solution for you. Instead of just selling you some hardware, I want to make sure that this is a good fit for your use case and what you're doing. So that's the reason why I brought up the reasons why you wouldn't want to do it. It's not that I don't think it's a good machine. I think it's an amazing machine. But I want to make sure that this works for what you are doing. So we've got the 3220 all-in-one, 5480, and the 7480 all-in-one. And I want to move quickly on to the 7070 Ultra, which I think is so cool. This thing is cool. This might be the first thing that I just came out and said, hey, this is really cool. But when they first demonstrated this to us, you know, sometime last year, saying that this is going to come out. I was very excited about this machine. So I don't know how well you can see the graphic we have here, but that little thing in the middle is your computer, right? So you can get different monitors. This solves the problem that I was talking about earlier, where if you have an all-in-one and your screen breaks, then you are out of machine. The computer slips in to the back of your machine, and you just hook everything up and it works. So this is great for if you want that clean look, but you also want to be able to upgrade your machine, or you just want to be able to, like, when the next gen comes around, you want to stay current, you want things to be up to date. You don't have to actually change everything. You just pop that thing open, you slip the new machine in, you close it up, and you're good to go. What do you think about that? I don't know.
That's really cool. I agree with you. I really
Really
like the
cool.
modular approach, and you know, people have been saying for years that you know, our phones are going to sort of merge into one thing with the desktop, and that hasn't quite come true. But you look at that form factor there, and it almost looks like one of the phablets. So you know, I wouldn't be surprised if someday the powers merge together here. I really like that. And with the USB-C, it's amazing what you can sort of squirt through one wire now.
Yeah, USB-C, 10 gigabytes. It's pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does this
Okay,
computer have
so
a lot of power to it?
it's got every bit as much power as your other machine, like say the 3070 that people are used to. It is every bit as strong as that thing. I can,
How
if
about
you're
dual
interested,
monitor?
what's that?
What if you want a second monitor?
I asked them about that. I believe due to it being USB-C, that is possible. That's something that I would have to double check the spec technical guidebook, and I haven't had that question come up yet, so I don't know.
Yeah, there's space issues in my office, so the more compact we can put this stuff in, the better. And so, but people would complain if they lost their dual monitor.
Oh, dual monitors is a big deal. So give me your information. I can send you a spec sheet and we can talk about that. If that's cool with you, if that's cool with Ian, I'm happy to do that. Okay.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
All right. So I'm going to move on to the rack mounted. If you have a situation where you need a rack mounted just computer, not a server, we have that. And you have, this morning I was quoting a 3930, and what we did with that one is you had your 500 gigabyte hard disk drive and a RAID 1, and then we also had the 256 SSD attached to the motherboard, so that you had your quick think and your slow thinking. That's my oversimplification of the storage, but so you've got your slow storage and you've got your quick storage ready to go. These are fairly configurable, and if you need a CPU in your data center, we have a solution for you.
These would also be ideal for AV or scientific applications, don't you think? Maybe also security camera.
Yep, that sort of thing. I think that the use case for the one I was configuring this morning was, oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget. is a monitoring system for
Yeah.
just
Okay.
monitoring the heat of something. So, so moving on to the Precisions, these are the computers with the advanced video cards and graphics that you need if you are running, if you're an architect, if you are running AutoCAD for some reason, if you're running that sort of thing, then I would look at a Precision. You've got more options with your video cards. You have the NVIDIA and AMD options. This thing can push out to 7 displays if that's a need that you have.
Nice.
And so when you're looking at, when you're working with an engineer, architect, someone who's doing very, very high computing, graphic designers sometimes, not talking about just graphic design, but if they're creating a video game, that sort of thing, then you're going to look at these Precision models, and they come in the tower as well, and you can get these as a laptop. So, any question about the Precisions?
Well, I mean, you can easily spend, you know, $1,000 on a CPU, or you can spend $1,000 on a video card, you know, just on those components alone. So, you know, thinking back to some of the other models, you know, probably the CPU for a standard, you know, desktop computer might be one of the more expensive, if not the expensive hardware component. But you know, I think I'm so glad that Dell has the Precision line where you have those options to go with those more robust components.
Definitely. They are really, really complex machines. It can be I do for, you know, 2 hours a day, sometimes 3 hours a day, I'm just configuring machines. And these machines are the most complex because you just have so many options for what you can do with things. Okay. So I wanted to talk about monitors for a second. We've got ultra sharp monitors, the P series, the E series, and the large format. Ultra sharp monitors are going to blow you away. They are so vivid and bright. The P series is what I would recommend for your business. The E series is what I would recommend for your business if you're just looking to save some money and you don't want to put the extra $40, $50 into a monitor. These are still fantastic monitors. And then we've got large format monitors that will cover the side of your wall. That's something that you need. They also have the capacity. They have multi-touch, so they can be touch screens, and multiple people can write on them and touch them at the same time. So that if you're looking to set up like a whiteboard and have several people writing on it with just their fingers, you could do that with one of these large format monitors.
Where do the curved monitors come in?
The curved monitors, that's a curved monitor. We've got the 34-inch. I believe that the 34-inch is where they start to be curved. And these are awesome. Some of my friends at the office have 34-inch monitors, and everybody is just jealous of them because basically you can set up 2 screens worth of work on one monitor. And then if you get dual screens with a 34-inch monitor, you've just got screens surrounding you. It's fantastic. It is a delightful work experience, is what I would say. I threw this in here, but I'm not going to read it to you. It's just some things about how gorgeous these things are. So 3840 by 1600 curved screen. This one is a 37-inch. And if you want more information on these, I can send you the brochure, and because that's basically what I'm doing here. I'm just going through the brochure and trying to tell you guys what we've got. But I think that it would make working way more enjoyable. I personally have 2 Dell monitors. Dell dual monitoring increases your productivity by a solid 16 to 20%. If you think about someone getting an extra day's work out of someone every 5 days, then they more than pay for themselves to go dual monitors. I use 2 24-inch monitors, and that's pretty effective. I can't imagine trying to do my job on 1 monitor. So that's how I feel about monitors. All right, I want to talk about docks for a second, because I had one partner who was shying away from Dell, and what I found out is that he was like, "Hey man, I like your computers, but we've had a bad experience with your docks." And I was like, well, I happen to really genuinely believe that our docks are good. So what I would like to do is find out, some more about what's going on and where the disconnect is. So the docking situation can be a little bit complicated, and if you don't mind me being a little bit more pedantic than I've already been, I'm going to explain this one to you. So the D6000 is your universal dock. It will do everything. It is a safe bet. Okay. And it will connect up to 3 4K displays. It's a good dock. Most, and this is a little bit too high, my gosh. But from there, we go on to the WD-19 dock, and you have options. There's the WD-19 130 watt. There's the WD-19, I believe it's 90 watt. The WD-19 DC and the WD-19 Thunderbolt. And it is important to get the full use out of whatever your machine you're using, that you have the correct dock. Your WD-19 90 watt, that's what I would recommend for someone who is powering a Latitude with an i3, possibly an i5 processor. Okay, once you move on to the i7 processor, it just requires more energy, it requires more power. So in order to not end up with any issues, you'll want to go to the WD-19 130 watt. Okay, the WD-19 Thunderbolt is so much faster. With you go from Type C, which is 10 gigabytes, to Thunderbolt, which is 40 gigabytes. You're 4 times faster than you were before. And if you didn't think that you were slow, you'll start to notice it once you start using Thunderbolt. The issue with quoting these out that is very important is you want to check the spec sheet, and you want to check the palm rest on your machine to make sure that the Thunderbolt is listed on the palm rest, because there's actually internal components in the laptop that need to be enabled in that configuration in order to get the full use out of the Thunderbolt. Now, your Thunderbolt dock will work with a laptop that is not Thunderbolt enabled, but it will work at 10 gigabytes instead of the 40 gigabytes which can cause some people to feel like they didn't get everything that they needed out of that. Now, if you're running one of these, you know, the 7540, 7730, 7740, if you're running one of these high precision mobile machines, that's when you quote the WD19DC, because it provides 210 watts of power, and that's going to power your machine. This is an issue that we want to make sure that we're informing our end users about, and informing our partners about, just because you think you're doing your job, and you are quoting something out, and you go, oh, I need a dock, and you put one on there, and they get it, and then it doesn't do everything that they want it to, and they might get a little bit of heartburn out of that, and we want to avoid heartburn. But if you have the correct dock with your laptop, these things work great. We get no problems. Anyway, I want to talk to you about docks. Any questions about that? Was that too much? Was that?
I can give you some feedback on docks, because I
Yeah,
get it all the time,
ready for it.
especially from senior managers who are used to the old way of just taking their laptop home and then coming back to the office in the morning and plopping the laptop onto a physical dock. When
Yeah,
Dell went to this, what I would call, it's not a dock, it's really a cable manager. It confused the heck out of some of our people who were used to just being able to plop their laptop in, hit power, and go. And now they have to, the cord falls behind their desk, or all this garbage is now hidden somewhere. They have to fish around behind their desk and find the cable and plug it in. Sometimes it fires up and it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I don't know if the R&D guys at Dell did any little like human trials on this before they went to this.
I've heard that one before.
Yeah, I do think the power management piece, it does seem like the integration of power between the dock and the laptop, and I don't know if it's even a Dell problem. It could be a software problem, but it often seems like it doesn't want to wake up. Or it could be user error where, you know, the laptop was, you know, be in some, you know, you have the laptop trying to go to sleep because they're closing the lid, and the dock trying to wake it up, and it's not all on the same page.
Or sometimes it's the settings they're using at home on their home network do something screwy. When they come back to the office, the laptop doesn't want to recognize anything.
It definitely, it seems like the bottom line though is that the whole dock situation has gotten a lot more complicated than it used to be, and you've got to really pay attention also that you have the right equipment.
Right. I used to work in a factory, and I used one of those click-in docks, and that was pretty cool. And so I hear you. I think that the way docking is moving is to this Type-C connection, because using the Type-C connection, you don't have to worry about if it's clicked in or if it's clicked in all the way. If you don't end up with some of the physical issues that some of these click-in docks had. Like the one that I had, you had to push a button in order to get your computer back from the desk, and sometimes it would go, and sometimes you had to like mess with it before it would come out. So I think that the way docking is moving is towards this Type-C or Thunderbolt connection, one for the increased connectivity. Also, to remove some of the space taken up on your desk, because I remember, I mean, those big click-in docks, they took up a good portion of your desk even when you weren't using your laptop. So but I hear you, there is a conversation to be had there. There's definitely a conversation to be had. So Anyway, any more discussion about docs? Want to talk about? Okay, cool. Moving on. So we've got our latitude 7424, 7414. So I'm not going to go too in depth on these. I'm just going to say that the extreme is for if you're in a situation where there's going to be a lot of dust. There's the possibility of ignition, like there's a possibility that there you would ignite some gas, possibility that it would be overheated or too cold. Like a real rugged situation, that's when you would go towards your extremes. Your rugged notebook is for if you are the most common use that I use them for is police officers use them in their cars, that sort of thing. If you're going to be moving around a lot, you've got a mounted machine in your car, or if you're going to be walking around inside the factory all day, and you need some extra protection. When we used to go into the office, when we used to go into Dell, and we will be going back eventually. I don't know when we will be going back, but there was a police officer's car. There's a police car on, and underneath each one of the wheels was one of these rugged machines. So they are really tough. How am I doing on time? I feel like I'm probably running long.
Not too bad.
Okay. All right. 2 more slides. Wanted to tell you about PowerStore. It's a new product. This is what they're calling the data decade. Just keeping up with your data is really, really important. This is a storage device, but I thought it was worth bringing up. We've got new storage options for keeping up with your storage, and this is a new product called PowerStore. The other really cool thing that we've got coming out that's just brand new is this thermal vision solution. It's due to the fact that a lot of companies they've got people sitting outside scanning people's foreheads to find out what their temperature is as they walk into the building, right? Like schools are doing that, some government buildings, that sort of thing. And when you think about just the money that you are spending on your manpower doing that, you've got somebody who is specialized to do their job, so you're losing them from their actual job. You know, like say a teacher is scanning foreheads as students are entering the building. This thing will scan them as they walk through. You can keep up with it and manage it from inside. It scans, you know, the surface temperature of someone and alerts you if they are running a temperature, which is pretty fancy. So anyway, that's everything that I've got put together. I hope that was helpful and that I didn't meander too much. But any questions about anything that we're talking about?
That's really cool that you wrapped up with that, because I know a lot of us are looking for ways to protect our workforces. And I was just meeting with some CEOs today, and we were talking about things like this, as well as apparently low oxygen levels are another early sign of COVID. And one of our partners in the peer group was saying that they're doing a finger oxygen test on employees that are showing up and recording that. But, you know, it seems like this would also, you know, reduce the chance of you know, some frontline staff person getting the virus, because the automation is doing it. And somebody in my peer group had an employee that had the virus, and they've been out. They were a young person, they did end up having to go to the hospital. They were out 3 weeks, and they were sort of sick, you know, for a week, working remotely from home and not really certain what they had. So they're 4 weeks into the impact, and you know, the person still isn't back to work. And luckily it didn't spread because they were already working from home. So I'm glad you guys are working on some solutions there.
Yep. And just returning back to the beginning of the conversation about the digital transformation of the workspace, because Dell's main push is having an end-to-end solution, having one company, and whatever it is that you need, we can provide it, and we can also provide support for it. So each of these client devices can be covered by really fantastic support. And you also have the possibility of, if you are running a large project, we do imaging and recycling. If you have just a lot of hardware that's building up and you need a place to send it, we can do that for you. We can do deployments. But also, as these client networks grow, you also see the need to increase your back-end infrastructure, your storage, your servers, networking, and all of that. And so the awesome thing about Dell is that you can go to Dell for that entire project and not have to go to 6 different vendors and find out what's going on. You can get one quote, all of it on there. Some of the things have to go through distribution, but you can, that is the push of Dell, is the end-to-end solution. So
when we talk about support, one thing that we really appreciate with Dell, and you know, people talk about getting computers that are you know, refurbished, or getting computers that are at Best Buy, or you know, looking at other manufacturers. I mean, our experience has always been that, you know, when a system is down and we need to get parts for it, we're able to get those parts quickly from Dell and get things back up and going, whether it's a, you know, a rank and file user, a power user, a server. I think it's really been that you know, ability to get the parts on the ground quickly, and have somebody to talk to about the issue that's kept us loyal to Dell over the years.
yeah.
Are there supply chain issues that you guys are dealing with right now with COVID? You know, just getting parts out of Asia or other things like that we should be aware of?
There is currently a delay on servers that I know about. I tried to send out, due to the COVID-19 crisis, there were a lot of issues with the supply line, and so what I've tried to do is research the machines that are shipping quickly right now and send that nearly daily. So that's something that I'm working on. But most of the lead times that I'm seeing are, you know, 2 or 3 weeks out, and for servers it can be a month or 6 weeks. So that is something to know about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Because what usually happens is people get the quote, it sits on their desks for 6 weeks, and then they say, well, 6 weeks has gone by. We want it installed tomorrow. So it doesn't always work that way.
Right. That's why we try to work with you to, you know when things are need to be on site, so that we can plan ahead. Yep.
Daniel, this has been great. Let's open up the floor. Any other questions or comments for Dell, for Ian Computers? Everything you see here with our partnership with Dell, we really integrate this into our day-to-day operations for our clients. You know, we work as an extension to their IT team, their operations team, or we are their IT team if they're a small organization, they don't have IT staff. So we work to, you know, manage Dell or other hardware manufacturers, make sure that we can, you know, get the parts here, make sure we can do the projects, make sure that you know, any services that they're providing, like warranties, are integrated in with the final solution that the client's looking for, and then work to put together a budget, know, you know, what systems that a client has are under warranty, how old they are. You know, if we, like we were talking about with Daniel, if there's a phased in approach where we need to replace, you know, a quarter of the computers every year, you know, what does that look like? We work with Dell with financing. We've done a lot of financing projects with Dell or other partners where, you know, we're able to, you know, even finance maybe equipment from other manufacturers all into sort of one, you know, like Daniel was saying, end-to-end solution. So sometimes you can get all new computers and still pay over time, like you were doing that 1/3 type plan, but you know, the disruption is less sometimes if you do it one big project and get everybody sort of on the same page quickly versus you know, people still running, you know, 3 generations ago systems side by side. So those are all things that we work with Dell on every day to do.
Yep.
Well, Daniel, I think again, this is just a testament to the fact that the Dell shows up, you get to talk to a person, you know, English is your first language.
True.
We get to work through these things with Dell as a responsive partner, not just a website that ships stuff, you know?
Right. And if there's something that I don't know, like I didn't know about the dual monitors for, I didn't get your name, but for Mr. Silver, I will research that and I'll get an answer to you, you know, because we're dealing with technology and there is a lot to know. So I'm pretty quick to educate myself and send that information on. And that's the kind of relationship that we have with Ian as well. If there are things that we don't know, then we look it up and we find out. So
that'd be great to know. For us, we have 17 people crammed into a relatively small workspace. So anywhere where we can save room or create room by getting rid of equipment and cables is always good.
definitely. I will follow up with Ian on that. He can
Well, Daniel, again, thanks so much. And I guess that concludes the webinar today. And thank you all for joining.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye.